Yo, what is going on, guys? I'm very excited today to be answering this question, which came in from ShakeeLovesYou, and I love you too, Shakey. The question is, what was your earliest steps or guidelines of creating or developing your own sound? I love this question for several reasons. One of which is like you're asking about developing your own sound, and oftentimes people can miss it and go into like, how do I find my sound, as if it's something out there you search for, which it's really not. It's more so something that's already in you that we're simply needing to pull out and bring up to the surface. So that's what I'm going to do today with a simple 3-step process that I developed simply around this question, really, after reflecting on my many years of making music to give to you guys. So let's get into it. So there's 3 steps, like I mentioned, and those 3 steps are awareness, acceptance, and being. Also, I'm going to label them as flow, reflect, flow, which I'll get into throughout the process. I might jump around quite a bit mentally, but track with me. All right. So in awareness, you are simply to have fun. Now, I know there's oftentimes the cliche sayings of do what you love, have fun, like that's all that matters. But seriously, in this stage, that's extremely important, and I'll explain why. There are many great artists that we all listen to, as we all being collectively a society, listen to nowadays, some being like Drake, Travis Scott, just to name literally a couple. But in the early stages of their career, Drake sounded a lot like Wayne, and Travis Scott, you could hear his Kanye West and Kid Cudi influences. And even for myself, if you listen to my song Damaged, where do we? I sound just like Chris Martin, and I have no shame in it. You know, I'm well aware. I was very happy to sound like Chris Martin. And you know, when we're in this first stage of discovery and development, the most important thing is really just creating, like truly, because that's the foundation of this whole thing, is you're needing to create. And there's no awareness, really, oftentimes, more often than not, there's a lack of awareness of who we are, our own artistic identity. So how do we solve that? You simply do what you love to do. You simply do what you love to hear. You make it. And that's oftentimes our greatest influencers. So for me, it was Coldplay, and I'm sure there's some other ones, but that's the one that comes to mind. And like I said, for the other artists, it's, you know, Wayne for Drake, and for Travis Scott, Kid Cudi, Kanye West. So getting into the habit and practice of just creating habitually is super key, and making sure that it is a fun process. And you simply do that by just doing whatever you're attracted to. And that's awareness. And so you start to begin to notice, like, oh, I like this type of sound. I like this type of melody. I like this type of cadence. And you just simply do it. And then that leads us into step 2. Step 2, acceptance. I would say that this is the most quote unquote challenging phase. And the reason I say that is because it's the one that's going to require the most intentionality from you. You see, phase 3, which is being, and phase 1, which is awareness, they're pretty passive in a sense. And what I mean by that is you don't have to think so much. Like you shouldn't think much in these stages. It's something that isn't really a part of that process. But in acceptance, this is extremely important because this is where you're going to take into account these 3 different things, which is your physical makeup, your natural talents, and what moves you. The third one is a bit more, can be considered more passive or more just natural to the flow. But you want to have these in consideration because these are crucial to your development. These are crucial to what make you you. Like me being African American, having the vocal cords that I have, the face shape, the neck that I have, the lips and the mouth that I have, these all make up the unique sound that comes out of me. Even the size of my hands, I have these big hands. They make up what makes up my sound. And it contributes to the music that I make. Every little detail, this is where that comes in, and it's natural, So like the reason I call it acceptance is because, at least for me, I found this to be true. When I was in the awareness stage, when I was just being and having fun with my emulating my influences, something I ended up doing was rejecting who I am, rejecting my actual talents and my natural giftings that God made me with. So for instance, when I play guitar, I have different certain strumming patterns that I naturally am drawn to doing. My fingers just want to do, but I'll be like, it sounds too much like the last one I did, and that would stunt me from actually developing into what the next creative piece would be. And because I didn't want to bore people, I think this phase of accepting who I am and you accepting who you are it's really what makes you stand out. Rather than checking yourself at the door, you embrace yourself, at the womb, like looking at like, what is it that I was made with, and really moving with it. And then what moves you in this stage, combined with your natural talents and your natural makeup, is really what brings glues it all together. And that's where you start to really notice these different sounds. So maybe you're really drawn to David Bowie, or maybe you're really drawn to Elton John. I'm just naming these huge artists. Something else is maybe you're really drawn to just seeing artists in general, no matter their size, how they have 100,000, 1 million, or 1,000, or 100, or 10 followers, and you just love watching people in their process and people just being committed to that. Maybe that's something that, as seemingly disconnected as that is to the music, it really can be connected. And then tying this all together, we're going to go into step 3. So lastly, step 3 is all about being. John Mayer has this incredible quote that I really appreciate that he said, which is, writer's block is when the reader or listener doesn't like what the writer is doing. And I really appreciate this. I know it's about writer's block, but I appreciate it because it's really embodies what being is. Like oftentimes when it comes to being, and I'm not just talking about with music, but day to day, like we can get super caught up on like being perfect. And this is, you can see like there's some correlation here with acceptance. But I know that I've oftentimes gotten caught up in like, I haven't wanted to put out certain songs, more so because I'm like, I don't know if it's going to get the views, or if it's going to get the right, attract a certain look or image or things of that nature. And that will bleed over into my writing process and bleed over into everything. And it got so bad to the point where one time I walked into this studio and I was just shaking because I had to produce a song. I had certain demands on me to create more music, and it wasn't on the label, or it wasn't the label that was like, oh, you need to make it a certain type of thing. They were actually encouraging me to be more of myself, but because of my own rejection and the shell I had created, I didn't know what that really looked like, and so coming back to being and making sure you come from a place of acceptance, that allows for whatever to come out. And so once you've gone through this step of awareness and are enjoying everything that you're doing, like literally just create from a place of enjoyment, and then you reflected, you've taken the time to be intentional and be like, oh, like, and taking into account like who you are and just allow it to be, then the being stage, you're literally like, this is just who I am. And honestly, the more music you make, I do believe this, like if you really love making music and you enjoy it and you're coming at it from a place of pure enjoyment and not looking to please, like looking to create something, like you're going to exponentially grow your sound. You're going to exponentially really just expand you in your sound and your music. And it's because I think, honestly, I've just seen this time and time again, whether, say you're not doing that, say you're trying to please the crowd, you'll get better at certain things. So for instance, for me, I got better at producing, but I wasn't actually able to see that I had gotten better at producing because the metric I was focused on was numbers. And so because the numbers had fallen, I was like, oh, I must have not gotten better at producing. But that's not true. You know, like I got better at mixing and producing and songwriting, but because my metric was off, I had blinders on. I couldn't see where I was actually growing. So as long as you remain in this place of doing it from a place of enjoyment, not doing it for the numbers. I know bills must be paid. I know, I get it. Trust me, I get that. But if you have that on, it'll become a blinder. So as long as you keep the blinders clean, keep that windshield clean and pure, you will see exponential growth in all that you do with your work and all that you do with your music in terms of your sound and you coming to life. And so that's what I have for you today. Thank you so much for your question, Shakee, or Shake. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I hope this was helpful for you. And yeah, I'll be addressing more questions in future videos. I just dropped Start With Who I Am a few weeks ago. I have another song coming out on March 6th, and then I'm figuring out the next releases right now. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the video and that you find it helpful. God bless you. Love you. See you in the next one.